meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock at 6:01. Welcome to everybody that's here. Do we need any changes to the agenda?
We have a proposal here for Ryan's truck.
Okay,
For
we'll just,
repairs.
okay, we'll just add it to the agenda. When we got, where do we wanna put it in? Oh.
On the highway?
Yeah.
Do it
Yeah.
again.
You want to do-
Yeah, so then we don't hang up other people with
Right.
this stuff. Change that. Okay, are we public comment? Somebody aren't on the agenda? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Gary Smith. I live on Marcoux Road in Hyde Park. Spoke with Ron earlier today about an issue I've had with the snow plowing on my road. And apparently I'm not alone. The plowing seems to be getting so wide, you know, from what it has been in past years, that it's keep getting wider and wider, and the roads isn't that wide. So what that means is they're plowing the town right away, but my lawn, my fields. You know?
Okay.
And it's a problem. I mean, I don't mind, I understand that, you know, you plow dirt roads, you're gonna throw up some gravel and stuff on the lawn. And, you know, you spend some time in the spring and you power
Right,
it out. But, I mean, I'm getting to the point that it's like, it's a lot. I mean, but just my lawn alone was probably 3 yards of material last year, you know, which is quite a bit of material just for a 150-foot stretch. And the fields, I just took my tractor and pulled it all back into the road. So today, they put up a few stakes to down the highway, just as a guide, because it's very open, my property, and the wind blows through it. It's a little hard to navigate. So they put up some stakes, but they sort of seem to have trouble getting from stake 1 to stake 2 in a straight line. It's always like. So I added some stakes, which have been going pretty well. They, you know, got 2, I guess, so far, got knocked over, you know, which, you know, I understand. But today, I guess he just decided he had enough of that, so he just took out all of them. They just, you know, put the wing out there, and they're all gone. So, which kind of annoyed me. Like, you could ask Ron, I was a lot more annoyed when I saw him. Kind of just lack of respect, and I've had a hard time dealing with the highway department guy. He doesn't seem to really have much respect for the I've seen, for me anyway, so.
Okay.
That's why I didn't bother going to him. Actually, I did go there this morning. He was probably out plowing, so I didn't go back. Ron explains it to me is that that's just a new, you know, I mean, there's only 2 houses on my road. There's one at the very top where it hits Battle Road. The people don't even turn onto Marcoux. It's sort of, they just come out of the driveway and diagonal right onto, you know. So basically, for all practical purposes, there's 2 homes. Mine, which is 3/10 of a mile down, and there's one at the end of the road, which is it's a half mile long. But I own all the frontage, so it's over a mile, it's like almost a mile of frontage, and I'm stuck with the cleanup, you know, I don't know, I just think, I mean, since I can't deal with him direct, it seems like maybe
Nope, this
I'd be
is
wise
yours.
to speak with someone here. I
Robbie,
figured it was you.
Yeah, right.
Are the stakes that you put up, are they in the right of way?
Yes. We did the 50-foot right away?
Well, we got
He told me there's a
25.
50-foot right away.
25 on each side.
25 on each side.
Right, so it's a
Yeah.
50-foot, but yeah, sure,
Yeah.
of course, yeah,
In
otherwise,
the center, 25. and-
yeah, otherwise, if I hadn't had it right away,
That
then
Marcoux
plow
Road's
into
a
my
50
front,
50
my living room.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. There's 2 reasons. The state of Vermont, because I worked for them for so many years,
Yeah,
we have to push the snowbanks way back. Well, one of the guys that works for us came from the state. I don't think that's Mark's route
No.
there. It isn't.
No.
It's
I would say it's Mike's,
Mike, yes,
that's what I would say.
Mike Griggs.
yeah,
And we have to keep the snowbanks plowed back more than they ever used to be, because of the storm water, and we gotta keep the water off the road when it does start to thaw. And that's the guides that we have to follow from the state of Vermont. And, so, yeah, everybody's always gonna get pushed further back. Yes, we are doing damage, not just to your property, but there's other properties out there that are getting some damage as well too. But we're having to follow the guidelines, and, this is what it's coming down to everywhere.
Okay, I understand that, but I don't think they have to be plowed where they're plowing. I mean, if you use that as a criteria, then they should rebuild the whole road, pick up the whole 50 feet, pavement, put in drainage, which is ridiculous, I understand. But, they, I mean, it's worked for many, many years, and some reason the people who are sort of running it now, our road's never been an issue. It really isn't an issue, it's a great road in terms of, right, about 2 years ago, they re-gravelled it. It was the first time in 30 some odd years. Because it just holds up really well. Lack of traffic is helpful, but it's also just the way the water runs on it, it gets off, It doesn't sit on the road. There's no bellies, it's well crowned. So, I mean, if it's crowned, if they plowed it 20 feet wide, we'll say, it would get to here. It's already crowned, it's going like this. So they're just pushing out further. But they're not making the water, like I said, they can just keep going, but the water's going off anyway. There's never standing water on that road. The whole road is sort of, there's hardly a flat spot on it, not that there's a lot of big hills, but it's not, right. It rolls and it's pretty, it just moves, the water moves and it goes, and it's never an issue. I think there's 2 culverts on the whole road, one actually. There's one that's near the pond, that's for overflow, and then there's one at the far end of the road. But it just doesn't need it. Sometimes my field gets a little mucky at the bottom, but it's all right.
Roger, are these guidelines from the state as opposed to this is what you have to do?
This is what we have to do.
On state roads.
What's the guideline we follow here?
The MRGP, the
Yeah.
new rule, the new permit that the town signed on last year will give you a failed road if you don't have your shoulders at a negative grade. So that 3 or 4 edge that's outside where cars drive is the shoulder.
Right.
There's supposed to be good road bed under there, and that shoulder is supposed to be a negative grade so that you have the crown of the road, and then the water keeps going off the travel lane. If you don't have that edge cleaned up, the water hits the edge and stays in the travel lane. So
Makes sense.
that's the design solution. So on all those roads that we had that were red, I don't know if you remember the map,
Yeah, yeah.
those were the non-compliance roads with the new MRGP standard. And they'll say, berm present, no drainage off road. Those are all shoulder issues that a lot of roads didn't have. I mean, there's plenty of roads, you can name any road, had sections where that uphill side was creeping right into the travel lane. So when you take a 3-foot section and try to get it negative, that's a big impact on those neighbors. Even if you're only moving 3 or 4 inches, which might be what the plow might do with the wing during the winter, if it digs into that edge a little bit. I don't, what the mediation is, I'm not sure. I mean, we probably should take Roger going and looking at it and just see what happened, actually. Talking to Mark and getting back to Gary.
I just think that they just exercised a little more common sense and realized that not every road in the town is exactly the same. It's not like in a city, we'll say, or a big development where the roads are paved, they're 22 feet, 4 feet wide,
Everything's the
curves.
same, right.
Okay, it's very, we're all the same. This isn't like that up here. And if they just look, I mean, they go like in the early part of the year and the late part of the year, like, when it's warm, they'll come down there and just peel like, 4 inches of sod right off, Then it's really a mess, it's like, that's where, they should just leave it, don't even plow it. If you get an inch of snow and you got mud underneath it, you leave it. I mean, last year on the curve, I have a curve at the bottom of the road going to the neighbors, it was 21 inches thick, the gravel that they had plowed up. That wasn't snow with gravel laying on top of it. It was 21 inches of gravel there. And they just came with a grader and pushed it over the hill, but they did, There's a problem there, and they just have to exercise. Maybe it's too big of a truck. Maybe they should be using a smaller truck. Yeah, the truck is too big for the guy to operate. I don't think it is, but.
Roger, how about you go up and
Yeah.
If you have,
Give
keep
it-
me up
give it
there,
a
that'd be
look,
great.
right.
But I just don't think it's, like I say, for years it was plowed and there wasn't an issue. Sure, once in a while, you get, of course, stuff happens, but I say it was just like rude. I mean, you don't go and just wipe. Now I have all these stakes that are chopped off, and you know what that creates? It creates a spear sticking up that I don't even know where they are. Somebody will find it. They won't be a town truck because they go down the middle with their wings way out, But it might be a tractor or it might be something, who knows, But they really disliked them that much. They should have just come to me and said, hey, listen, you shouldn't put them there.
right.
But this was, malicious as far as I'm concerned. So if you want to take a look at it,
Yep. Be more than
you
glad
can
to.
set up a time. I'll go and leave you
Yep.
a phone number or.
I think I got yours, Ron sent it to me.
Okay.
Yep, he sent it to me later this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Let me just double check here.
Sure.
Well, and some of it, again, you end up, with the state policies and they come out and they do this, that, and the other, and it's our guys on the road. Here's sort of a problem with trying to do general guidelines for anything, and you see a reason why you need to have some guidelines. But then if you have something that is working all right, and the runoff, you gotta check in the spring and make sure in a big rainstorm, the runoff is all right. You ought to be able to not ruin it. I'm gonna put it that way. And again, that gets into but the state guidelines say you need to do this, and but.
Certain areas have problems, much more problems just because of topography. They end up having problems with mud, and then, obviously, everybody familiar with mud
Right.
season and mud problems. I don't have mud problems, like our roads never have mud problems, ever.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have Roger will be in touch.
730. Give myself 5130.
5130.
Yeah.
I know they said I'd stop thinking about it.
If it doesn't roll right out, it's stuck.
Good.
Okay, so
I'll give you a call, we'll look and talk.
Appreciate it. Appreciate the
Okay,
whole board.
great.
listening.
Yep.
You guys have a good night.
Thank you for stopping down,
Yeah.
appreciate it. Completely different, just while I think of it. I got a very unusual constituent call this week in the middle of the snowstorms, and they had a complaint about the roads. And the complaint was that the roads were too clear. And I said, by golly, you're in a minority. I have to confess, I had absolutely no idea how to respond to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. And I said, and you're definitely in the minority. But that's okay, I will tell the guys,
Yeah.
it's just,
I know where they're coming from, but I'm not gonna comment on it.
yes, it's just like, okay.
That they're not 100% off base.
And of course, part of it may be where you live on the routes and going through and everything else too, Anyhow, okay, Memorial Regional Solid Waste Management District. Appointment till town meeting.
Marilyn Zofar was invited, she expressed interest in serving out the last, I think it's one meeting before the election at town meeting day.
Right, and then at town meeting she'll run. She had, actually I know the history, there was
She
this.
had ran against Harold.
Yeah, she ran because there had been a spell where Harold wasn't going that much, so she's really interested, so she ran, and then
Yep.
Harold got reinvigorated and was going, but is obviously now resigned.
Right.
So, I think,
So just need a motion to appoint Marilyn.
Yeah.
fill the remainder of his term.
Which is just until town meeting, so.
Did anybody make a motion?
No, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay.
5, 2, 3. I think I got a chance to do another roll.
Thank you.
Okay, see you guys.
Okay.
Okay. Health in Lamoille Valley.
Great. Hi. Ron, did you want to start this piece or?
Yes, I could. As you know, and in your packets, there's an example of some programs and funding sources and things, but basically the two things happening. One is the trailhead down at the Depot Street extension is being planned, and part of that is how you want to represent that to users, what information you want to share with them, what activities you want them to do down there, those kind of things. The other one is more of a community-wide goal that's in the town village plan about helping citizens be healthy and provide good housing and recreational opportunities and all those fun things. What we haven't done, either through the planning commission or rec committee, which we talked about last with Valerie a few weeks ago, or the select board, is really implement sort of policies and goals and things
Right.
that implement some of the goals that are in the town plan. So Healthy Lamoille Valley is part of the resource for those kind of, call them soft goals. They're sort of like human social goals. They're not trucks and, you know, what to do about fire protection. It's
Right.
things that you sort of have to do a little bit of research on. Some of it's science-based, some of it's, which is called evidence-based, some of it's just good common sense. Some of it that we talked about was enabling people to do sort of self-enforcement of some of these things too. So there's two different things. One is the actual, what can we do down at the trailhead, signage, exercise equipment, things like that. And the other one is your community-wide.
Great, thanks. Hi, again, I'm Allison Link. You probably know Valerie Valcourt, but do you want to introduce yourself?
So I'm a public health nurse with the Vermont Department of Health, but I'm a resident of Hyde Park. I live in Ebenezer Road.
So I guess we'll start, one thing that's not in the package is just a little bit in general about Healthy Lamoille Valley. For folks who don't know, we're the Lamoille Valley Substance Use Prevention Coalition, especially for youth, substance use and misuse. So we're trying to help youth make healthy choices as much as we can. And some of that means like the policy work and the environmental factors. There is some data that's in that, but that's generally what we do and how we try to collaborate with all stakeholders, community partners, towns on how to best help towns and whatever stakeholder implement their vision. Like, what's your vision in Hyde Park for what it'll be generations down the line, but not just with infrastructure, and those things are really important, but also with the health of the town. And I know that there are so many things already that are in the town plan and that Hyde Park has worked on. So I just wanted to allude to a couple of things first. One is I live in Marstown, and I just started reinvigorating the Recreation Commission, which was defunct for a while. So I'm interested in broadening that into, helping support, that's as a volunteer, but helping support in general the recreation needs. So I was looking at some of the rules and regulations of the recreation fields here in Hyde Park, and I noticed you're already thinking about like the mission of Healthy Lamoille Valley. For example, number 1 in that is persons shall not enter the rec fields under the influence of alcohol or consume alcohol at any time during youth play. Persons shall not possess or use illicit drugs on the rec field property, etc. And then down a little bit is persons should not use any tobacco product during youth play. So already thinking about exactly what I just mentioned our mission is, which is great. So when Ron and Val and I got together and we were talking about the new trailhead, how we can help support, there are lots of ways we can help support that. One is we're brainstorming ideas of what might be there for recreation and play and just a healthy lifestyle. Another was this piece. I don't have a color version because my printer's not color, but Ron said you have a color, so I don't know if you want to take a look at that.
Green.
It's green.
Green, right.
So we help with signage, and we designed this as a draft. You might know that Morristown, Oxbow Park became tobacco-free last year, and so we kind of had a similar sign and model that we used with their signage and all these icons with being substance-free, and use your logo. So this is an example of a kind of signage that you could adopt, and not only for that trailhead, but if you like the signage and whatever edits or whatever you would want to do with it, you could also think about what other places you might want to include more signage, like on the fields, or just to have some consistent town feel on what's the culture, and people see this sign here, then they see it there, then they see it there, what it might do to support the town. We can print these for you and help figure out how to get installed and whatnot. So this is one way.
How do you monitor it?
Monitoring, I know, that's always a question. So monitoring also becomes, and you may have talked about, is a lot of self-enforcement. And it also depends on what kind of overall policies might come up that you might look at for down the line. Like thinking about, so I'll just back up a little bit. How about before enforcement? But some of what we do, you also have in your packets. It's something that looks like Healthy Mile Valley on top, and it looks like this. It says my name on top, Allison Link, and then education for cities and towns on substance use prevention. So it's something for reading at another point, but there are lots of things that communities can do once visioning. What do we want our town to look like, generations down the line? How does health relate to that? Whether it's nutrition, physical activity, lack of substance use, what do we want to happen in future generations? And then it's looking at, so what kind of language might support the vision that the town has? So language, like in your town plan, or we have also lots of other potential language that you might have seen this, and it's in one of the links that Ron sent to you all, but I can also follow up with it. Language for town plans that relates to health and wellness, we have in this document, which is called the Primer for Prevention, which we're actually updating right now. But there's all different language for every different section of the town plan, from land use to school education, that might be just a seed that's planted to follow up on, or even to start with what you have already in your town plan that you want to follow up on. One thing keeps coming to my mind in the first page of your town plan, where it says, residents enjoy the scenic and historic character of Hyde Park's landscape, and to preserve these unique attributes for future generations of the landscape. And it just really struck me of finding that balance. There was just a town, there are towns all over Vermont and all over the country who are making plans for thinking down the line, but wanted to preserve the unique character of the town and didn't want a adult use only, like paraphernalia shop putting all different signage right in their village, and they were able to create some specific zoning around that of where it could be in town, and then so there are different ways of doing it. So the different types of policies or the different types of ways to approach it with language, or just creating the vision, thinking about that, what you want down the line. Language for town plans around health and wellness, looking at the assets you have, which are so many, and I know Val has identified in her, which she'll share a little bit, so many of the assets here in Hyde Park. Figuring out some language that you might be interested in of planting some seeds of language. And then there's the possibilities of, for example, this at the trailhead, thinking about what you want and what you don't want, and having some clarity on that, getting whatever the community is interested in, and saying, oh, we don't really want adult use substances or illegal substances here. We want to create this as a place where people who show up know that they don't have to engage with that, or especially youth, because so much of society, when we come around, there's a lot of norming towards some substance use, and so we want to not have as much of that as possible. Especially, you may have heard of the e-cigarettes. Have you heard of
Yeah.
Right. So that's like reinventing the tobacco industry, reinventing itself, and they use flavors to attract the youth. And now we have this, what the health department's called an epidemic. And we are working with all of our towns to try to say, you know what, it's not only about smoking, but it's about vaping, and it's about flavored products that you can't sell cigarettes in these flavored products, traditional cigarettes, but you can sell this other nicotine delivery system to youth. Well, not sell it to the youth, but the youth get it pretty easily. And so, all of these things that are happening, how we can create some, like, either town-wide can create policies of limiting the density of outlets of substance, where substance can be sold, or...
Right, you know about that in Hyde Park?
Yes, I know that's true. Well, you don't ever know about your downtown. So, but what you talked about, which I was going to get to, is agriculture, looking at the new marijuana laws, and who knows what's happening for commercialization into the future. It's looking at what's happening now, but also looking at down the line. What might you see as potentially happening down the line? What you want to be able to think through as how we can help support you in what your needs are, and addressing how, what will happen in the community before it might happen. For example, Morristown has a ban on marijuana dispensaries already. They almost changed it because they said, oh, we don't need this because it didn't pass. But then they realized, oh, but we should keep it just in case it does. And that's what we want for our town. So, we talked about a conversation about agriculture, right? And what will happen with growing from cannabis and hemp, and what will happen in the community, and approach for, and what the environmental impact might be, what the smell might be. There are many layers of all of these things. So there's thinking about those aspects. There's thinking about town open spaces. There's thinking about advertising, if and when, and what's relevant to you, I think, is most important. And what Val's going to talk about is an initiative that we worked on that's called 3450. Did you have a question? I see it.
No.
So Val's talking about 3450, which is another way for a town to just really be proactive, and I think that's what this is kind of about, like taking action and being proactive. There are 3 behaviors that lead to 4 chronic diseases that lead to more than 50% of deaths in Vermont. Have any of you heard of this initiative? Val talked about it. Right. So I know that Val's going to follow up a bit, but it's lack of physical activity, poor nutrition, and tobacco use lead to heart and lung disease, cancer, and diabetes, which lead to more than 50% of deaths in Vermont. And in the Moyle Valley, it's actually a little bit higher than the state average. Likewise, some of the youth data that we see about youth use of substance, and also perception of harm, like youth perceiving that substance is harmful. Like all of the data, not all, I would say some of the data in Moyle Valley is actually also higher than the state in some of those numbers. So looking towards our youth and looking towards an initiative that we can be proactive, the 3450 initiative is for towns and stakeholders of all kinds, retailers, faith-based institutions, daycares, schools, can kind of get on board and say, we want to try to tackle these 3 things as a community, larger than just one entity or an individual. Though surely an individual can take on those 3, right? But how can communities also take some action and become a partner and set goals? So really, we're here to talk about vision and how health plays a role in the town's vision, and support you in really any way we can, and do that follow-up. So this is really an introduction. I'm happy to answer questions and have Val share more about 3450.
understand the smoking. I went to shopping centers, I can tell you which one,
Yeah.
with my wife the other day.
Yeah.
When she was checking out stuff, I was looking around, they got their cigarettes in a locked cabinet right there, people look at it. Anywhere from $115 to $135 a carton.
Carton, I know.
Hell in the world, can anybody afford to smoke?
Well,
Expensive.
If you pick it up, you smoke
Carton?
Carton?
Yeah, carton.
You
Yeah.
smoke 2 packs a day.
You go over the enforcement piece.
Yeah,
That's
oh,
a
right, so let me get back to the enforcement.
Yes.
$150 a week.
So it's clear that addiction and behavior, and this is all part of why people buy cigarettes, or the Juul and the vape devices. Juul is one of the brands, why people are buying them and trying to combat addiction. So with enforcement, well, there are a couple reasons why you would have policies. And some policies have actually have consequences and across the state, and I can share with you some of those. Like Lyndonville has a tobacco free ordinance, and there's at all their recreation fields, and there's a $50 fine. There are some, and this enforcement is difficult. We don't necessarily advocate for that. We think that in the prevention world, self-empowerment and community empowerment is helpful. For example, at Oxbow Park, there are a lot of parents who are saying, there's smoking going on, well, we're here at Wednesday Night Live. It's an issue. And so, sorry,
You got this policy, and I can understand more so on to have the policy, but I went to 2, I think, this year,
Yeah.
and people are bringing in their drinks.
That's different. They do not have on their signs, they don't have alcohol, because they have something specific in their ordinances that says that they can have alcohol during Wednesday Night Live.
Oh,
Yes, that is something different that we're working on a different level,
Oh.
Okay.
at the community roundtable,
Okay.
yes. This is a different one. So if you look at the Morristown one, which I think Val,
Okay,
I
now let me see if I give you guys like another 5 minutes, because we've got to
So
finalize
I'll
our
show you,
budget.
so the Morristown one is, I can pass it down. Well, it's very hard to see, but it's this one, and it doesn't have alcohol. So you're correct.
Okay.
So with tobacco, for example, now that there are signs there have been parents who say it's easier for them to say when they're standing around there, hey, it's a tobacco-free park now, do you mind, my kids are here. And that because the sign is there, and because we made a to-do in the newspaper and whatever else, and make announcements at Wednesday Night Live, that decreases because of community empowerment.
Right.
That's how often this happens, and seeing the signage often helps people become comfortable, a little more comfortable being in a space. Even someone, let's say, and this is also one of the rationales, someone who maybe is a former smoker coming, or someone coming to an event that maybe is now tobacco free. They are now more able to be in a space where there's no smoking, quote unquote, allowed, right? But also there are people smoking around them. So it's more friendly to reducing the norming towards smoking for them as well as for youth in particular. And so that's the beginning of what I say about enforcement. It's a little bit of community empowerment.
Yep,
And
okay.
keeping it out of the youth purview, as we can say. And especially with tobacco, it's a secondhand smoker. So those are some of the topics. I don't know how to follow up on signage and interest, but whatever conversation, we're happy to continue it.
Okay, great.
And do you have something
Yeah, I
to
think,
think
I presented on the
Right.
while back, and I think as a resident of Hyde Park, I think it just comes down to me as to what will the consistent message be throughout Hyde Park. So I'm someone who I really enjoy using the rail trail, and I am a member of the Hyde Park Opera House, and just being present, and I know with the Connect Hyde Park work that's going on, and wanting to have people to come down to the downtown in Hyde Park and walk on the sidewalks and just be present in town. I mean, what do we want to see as a message to all of our community in Hyde Park? We want it to be friendly, we want it to be inviting, we want it to be healthy, we want it, to me, those are the types of messages I want to see.
We'll have to chat with the village about, when we're talking about signs, what they'd like to do, because the little park that they put in next to the French house.
The
But the-
park, yeah,
But the, you know, the bigger one by the memorial.
right.
um,
And I think
You
that
know.
sort of helps too, when you have a consistent signage and
Right,
consistent
right.
messages. It just helps to reinforce the whole behavior.
Right.
Yeah, and we talked about even like on some of the signs, you can even like, we could create whatever you would want, so it can enhance people's, interest, let's say tourism, right? Like, or people who come in, they get to the rail trail, but they don't know about a rec field, or they don't know about another trail or another place, and you can say, at the bottom, you know, we can add, visit our other locations, our other parks, and it can be something that brings that, you know, that kind of feel,
And certainly too, and it, well, while it's not necessarily tobacco, the Rise Vermont grants, those also can help with wayfinding signs if we want to let folks know what other amenities there are in town, where else they can go. And again, that consistent sort of, even if it's the same, similar, it'll just, again, sort of reinforce that message.
Do you know if anybody has, because in some of the, as we've traveled around and take the dogs out for walks on the rail trails in other states, but do you know if anybody here in Vermont has put, Vermont could be the place to do it, but you have stretches where they're like, it's maybe 5 different stations that you do different stretches or bound,
Yes.
or the,
Yep,
whatever,
actually,
for
Ron
those sorts of things,
does
yeah.
have it,
that
and
would-
Ron was talking about that with some of the,
But I was just thinking, you know,
Yeah.
down at the rail trail, because we've got a nice
Yeah.
long stretch down there,
It's-
put in something like that could be,
that's great, and Rise Vermont, actually, if you haven't seen that grant application, I think I put it as
that's
a link.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
something that would be
that they
funded
might
through
try.
Rise Vermont as an enhancement, it's called an amplification grant, which is
Okay.
great, like, Morristown actually just put in, not exercise equipment, but they got granted, approved a grant to put benches in, to encourage people
Yeah.
to walk and sit and have
Yeah.
some space. And so those are really all
Yeah.
possibilities. And Morristown also, they put their signs that they have here, they also put those on the rail trail kiosks that they own in the area, so it's,
Yeah.
so it helped encourage, it's not officially rail trail,
again, it's sort of.
policy,
Yeah,
but it
right,
sets the culture
right.
when you're in the town, that these are the
Right,
same
right.
signs. So I was thinking
Okay.
about that. Yeah, so any way we can help with any aspect of this, from visioning to conversations, you know, whatever comes to us through the community, bring it to you, and any follow-up on what you think you might want to consider moving into the future
Right.
around these issues, we're here.
Sounds like a February 14th topic, maybe.
Could be, I'm going.
They set a special policy meeting on February 14th.
Catch up on all the other policies.
No action items, just policies.
Yeah.
It takes a little
That's
more
right.
thought than action items during the meeting.
Yeah, for sure. So just those conversations.
I think what we need is an active recreation committee. Right now?
Yeah.
You know what's very,
It's on my radar.
if I can add, I was reviewing also this material again and different aspects of it, and one of the things is talks about municipalities joining forces and how that also helps support healthy culture across. And
Right.
so, you know, and Val comes to the Recreation Commission meetings in Morristown and helps give that support, and I feel like in the conversation with Ron, like I think that's in our area, I think that's really useful for us to collaborate and see how we can work together as towns and recreation in particular. So
Okay,
I'll put that out there
Yeah.
too.
gotcha. Okay. One more thing to think
We
about.
can do
Yeah.
signage discussion
Yeah, yeah.
offline, and
Right.
I think that's,
Right, right, we got it?
Yep.
Thank you.
Great,
Good.
thanks.
Thanks for
good
coming.
talk here.
Very
Right.
good.
We must have them all in. For the board to
Yeah.
work hard. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
See you later.
2020 budget review and draft of annual warning.
your changes, last meeting, plus a few other changes that came in, minor changes nonetheless. This is
Thank you.
getting close.
Thank you. Nice and cool.
Listen, we keep talking about how to save money, and this is it.
Yeah, we're doing it.
I took the pragmatic approach of putting my coat on the floor and my feet are now wrapped up in it, and that actually is very helpful. I can't say we're wasting any money on the heat. Okay,
How would you like to go over this?
wanna run through the budget?
Yeah. So on the first page, we have one ad that just came in, which is $600 request from Lamoille Neighbors. You'll see that, I don't know, 5 or 6 lines down. So you'll see $600 added, which is two
Oh, yeah, okay.
2/10,000ths of a penny. It's tiny. The projected tax rate, and at the very bottom,
Yep.
you'll see $25 more per year per $100,000 house.
Oh, yep.
So you remember those, the
Yep.
number.
Right, in the fine print.
Oh, way down there,
Glasses
The
okay.
number was much higher before you made your
Right.
paving cuts.
Right.
last time.
Ron, I had a question on this, I think the other day, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. When George Cook stood up at town meeting and he wanted to E91 the signs in Hyde Park,
Yeah.
he wanted $9,000 and he was gonna break it over 3 years period, correct?
Yeah.
Well,
it
this is a-
says three or four. I can't
I'll tell you,
remember.
it's 3.
Yeah.
And this is the 4th year, they still got that $3,000 onto it.
Yep.
And they're not half done yet.
Yeah, we're gonna get a report on there. I don't know what percentage they are, but they're a little more than half, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, why is it $3,000 if it was, the taxpayers only approved to do it for 3 years? And this is the 4th year.
Well, it was a total amount
Yeah, they
they were
approved.
approved.
Right, so the,
Well-
George has gotten up every town meeting day and explained where he's at, and he hasn't said anything about him being done in 3 years. He said we're 10%, 20%, 20, you know. So he gives an update every year. The select board decides to put the 3,000 in as a line item in the budget, has been for 3 years now. And George explains it at town meeting day, and that's the time to either increase it to finish it, or,
So is your question, would this be the 4th year?
This is the 4th year. If he wanted
This is the 4th year?
$9,000.
no, he's gonna keep, he'll go to town meeting day like he has been, explain where he's at, and the voters can keep going, or they could stop it. It's up to the voters at town, that's how we've been approaching it. So if the voters wanna stop it, then half the town will be done. If they wanna keep it going at 3,000, they'll eventually,
So he's
Well, I
done,
didn't think, the total, the way it was presented, it wasn't $3,000 a year. The total of the project was $9,000. Break it over a 3-year
I
period.
think it was before it started. Every year since then, he's come to update the town that it hasn't been, it's going longer. He hasn't come with 33% done after 1 year. He's told people that it's taken longer due to
Right.
increased costs.
I understand that, but I'm not
But
about
there
time.
wasn't an article though.
I'm not talking about time, I'm talking about money. If he said he could do it
Was-
for $9,000,
Initially, he said that. That's what I'm telling you. Every year since, he's come and changed that.
right, by saying that he needs 3,000.
Last time, I think he was at town meeting, he said it may take 4 or 5 years. That's the last
Right.
year's discussion.
I guess I'm not putting my point across.
No, you are,
Was-
because you're
was-
talking
wait,
about
wait.
pre-project discussion.
Right, if,
Right, but did the town vote the
They voted
total
every-
amount of money?
They're doing
No.
it.
No.
No, they didn't
Year.
vote, he's
They're
saying,
voting every year.
yeah, he's saying they didn't vote the $9,000.
Our
He
understanding was
said
he needs to come back every
Can
year.
do 3
Yeah.
years, it'll cost $3,000 a year, but you didn't vote, okay, here's $9,000.
And they do a hand.
He's coming back every year.
and I understand that, I
Okay.
understand
Yeah.
that, I understand that, but what I'm saying, if he said this project gonna cost $9,000, right? And here we are up asking for $12,000 and we're only
he didn't give
and
it,
we're
right.
only half done.
Well, that's all right, then he just needs to tell people that.
Yeah.
Why do you need more money if you haven't spent the money yet?
He's,
That's what I'm getting at.
I
Well,
don't,
he has spent $3,000
No,
a
he
year,
can't.
right?
No,
yeah, every year.
yeah, but he said he could do the job with $9,000. He's half done.
Well, we don't know how done he is.
That was that last report from him.
Well, that was,
That was last year.
yeah, that
You
was
see what I'm trying
last
to say?
year. Yeah, well, if that
But
was last year,
yeah,
it
I
was half
understand
done.
what you're saying, but Ron's saying he's
Right.
going back and asking the people every year now too. And they're the ones that give the hands, yes, they wanna do it, or no, they
Right.
don't wanna do it. So if it's voted down, that will be the end of it,
So
right?
for half
Right.
done, it cost $18,000. Where he said it was gonna be $9,000, it's actually $18,000.
I don't think he,
You
I
don't
don't think
know.
he ever knew. He's never, as far as I know, he's never changed the $9,000 number.
Well, if I can remember, was that thing on tape? He figured how many houses it was in Hyde Park and how many dollars it
Right,
was
so-
per sign, and it was awfully easy to figure what it's gonna cost.
Right, no. He's, every year he's come back with, we've got problems, we need to come back for
Right.
more. It's gonna take longer. Because he
I mean,
would,
it's kinda like projecting forward what the truck's gonna cost in 4 years. Good luck.
right, so we knew that things were
Don't do
gonna,
that, so.
we knew things were behind schedule, so he purposely goes to every town meeting and answers questions from the floor. And people keep giving him the $3,000. The same thing will happen this year. It could be $100,000. He should tell people that once he knows it.
Yeah, but when he started this,
We know that.
if there was
We know
two,
that.
if there was 2,000 houses in Hyde Park,
Yeah.
and it cost $3 per house, he ought to know what it's gonna cost.
But
Then
then
why-
you don't know in a year and a half that the price of the signs went up. You have no control over
I
it.
think he was estimating on signs only, and what they found is they have to buy the posts too. And the posts are almost twice as expensive as the sign is.
Yeah, that's frequently what happens, exactly, you know? But it's to ask him to
So-
explain that,
Yeah, well,
you know, and
yeah, you
to
should,
talk
you
about
should
it
explain that
in detail at,
we just he's just
at
gonna
town
have to
meeting.
keep going, and, but he doesn't really come out, he says where you are and stuff, but he doesn't come out that we're still gonna need another $3,000 if he come right out and say it.
Right, or here's how, you know, or.
This is why I'm
originally-
asking for another 3,000 this year and another 3 next
I
year.
think what we just need him to do is be more clear about what already has been spent, what initially we thought it was gonna cost, what's already been spent, how far we are through the project, do
And then
we
if
wanna
you put-
continue it?
Then you put it up for vote,
Right,
and the ones that are already got it's gonna vote it down anyway. You know, so, really, you think about it, you know?
Well, I mean,
You've got yours,
it's gonna
you
have to be,
say, I don't wanna spend no more money.
well, it's right in the budget, so I mean, I doubt if they aren't gonna vote it down, I wouldn't think. It just that if he would clarify, that's gonna cost us,
Yeah,
you know, for another
I
2,
got
3 years,
money.
another $3,000 every
I'm gonna
year.
vote it down.
But he just,
Okay, move on.
No, I see a note from 2014 where he presented, I need $3,000 to start 2014 town meeting day, which was FY15. So we have 15, 16, 17,
You got your
18,
sign.
19. So we're past your 3 years by far. Now we're going for 20, and it's a little more than halfway done, I guess. I don't know.
so how about,
So this $9,000 project's gonna cost us about $20,000 before we get out of it.
Is that good or bad?
I wouldn't call it too hot.
It might be good, it might be fine, because the reasons he's given the town people at town meeting day is we need to do this project, and it's still costing us $3,000 a year. And people say, go for it, keep going, because we see the benefit of it.
right, I think what we
So I don't
need to do
know what
is
to do with that
ask,
comment, but
ask George for a more detailed report.
That's working for him, that should work for me in my budget for more paving then. So I'll start doing it every year.
Absolutely.
we've been doing that, and you still don't know
Yeah,
what
but
the
still
you
not
still
enough.
don't know what your number is. As of last meeting, you had no clue what you guys were talking about as far as the cost goes, and that's sort of what happened to the signs.
Nobody's ever taken the time to go out and figure it out.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
they were doing a best guess back then about what's needed because they couldn't get the houses.
Yep.
And they said, "Will you let us start as a trial for first year at 3,000?" and we're gonna keep going, it might take us 3 or 4 years. They had no clue what it was actually gonna
Right.
cost. And then
No.
we added in the post costs, which we thought they were gonna use mailboxes and stuff. And then they started setting them away from the snowbanks and where people could see them better. And we used a lot more posts, so that reduced the number of signs. They were only planning on doing 200 houses the first year with the 3,000. We have 1,200. So it was automatically a 6-year times $3,000 budget.
What's a sign cost?
I think the posts ended up costing a lot more than they figured.
Yeah, I've got those here somewhere.
They've gone up.
There,
They aren't cheap,
no,
and they have to use what, a 6-footer?
yep,
6, 7, yeah.
I think 7 foot. I think that'd be 7 foot.
No, they ain't a sign, they ain't a sign Hyde Park 7 foot up.
You gotta put down into the ground after you get your,
You gotta put them about 3
So
feet in the ground.
just the sign, it's called a, it's like a blank for $13, and a 7-foot sign is 13.
So it's $26 a sign.
That count the post?
Yeah.
26
and
bucks.
13.
Well, it's a post and a sign, yeah, so you're,
posted signs, how much?
it's, right, look
13.
at the invoice for this next year, is at $26 a unit, basically.
$26 a unit?
Yeah. 13 for the sign, 13 for the post.
So in the past, you remember the fire department did a $10 sign deal? You remember that? I don't know, it was like 2012, town fire
I mean,
department.
posting signs of that by,
So we do about 120 houses, right? Around $3,000?
120 houses.
But George can give you all the numbers and tell you exactly where he's at, because they're keeping pretty
If
good.
that's true, at $30 a house, it's gonna cost us $30,000 to do the houses.
No, if it's $26 a sign and there are $2,000, it's $52,000. 26 times 2,000.
Wow. I bought my own, so.
People can still buy their own and put them up, that's right.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
But I think if you would ask George for a real breakdown and just to, so that
He prepares he writes something up every time, so.
Well, he does,
add
but this is,
some more.
that's
Get him
right,
to add
that's
some
right,
more
we're
stuff.
just looking some more. You know, and let town people know what it is, and they're right, if they wanna,
Keep it going, then keep it
Yeah.
going. Yes, that is.
It's kinda hard to stop it now. You got one, what can I do? Right?
wow, that's, we gotta,
and I do agree, I will be first on the table with my job. They are very, very not helpful, that they're almost a thing you need to,
yeah.
I don't think nothing of it then, Dave.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, you really need them.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, well, and if we just
Because
keep
it's
doing
just so- you just
3,000 a
can't
year,
keep
or
up all
sort
the
of, you
people that
don't,
move in and
we
out.
just sorta keep doing it,
Much
yeah,
you
that's
can
right,
do.
that's very
I
true.
just didn't, I didn't reckon I'd have the people that came through when I was doing the
Oh,
the election
doing the
things.
election,
I
I
couldn't
know.
believe there's that
I
many
know.
people.
Now, if somebody goes and gets a permit now, they have to buy their own sign, correct?
I don't think we put that in the policy,
Did
did
you
we?
put that in the regulation?
I don't think so.
You're saying no, they
Well,
don't?
that would make sense, though.
Yeah, it's just,
We
it's,
talked about that. I don't know if it ever went into effect.
yeah, you have it, the ordinance says you have to do it, but there's no enforcement, because the select board pulled enforcement. So, you want it to be encouragement through the ordinance, so there's no penalties or enforcement provisions in the 2012.
Okay,
And that led to the non-compliance, which resulted in a 2014 response by emergency to get them up. And people at town meeting day say, go try this out for a few years, and now we're getting to the point where some people think it should be done. Dave and other people, like the emergency people, are saying, we're getting there, but we're not there yet, the price, you know. So there's how far do you wanna go? It would, be if we had a certificate of occupancy in our zoning regs, which there's a lot of pros and cons to that. You don't let people move in unless they have their signs up. That's one way to use the certificate of occupancy. So it's all part of the homeowner's cost, and all we're doing is the catch-up going backwards.
I think that probably makes sense.
So that is a tool to
Yeah.
definitely consider at some point.
It's hard.
Okay? Okay, what else?
That was page 1. On page 2, which is the revenue page, you'll see the change at the bottom for Landfill Memorial Library with the proposal. This is a proposal, the board hasn't voted on this yet. The trustees are proposing basically from their last meeting with us to reduce the 12,000 to 9,000 and use the 3,000 for the reserve fund, which
Yeah, start there.
which will be an article added to the warning. So that's anticipating that's gonna go through. If that gets voted down or something, then I guess they'd go back to 12 probably. So that might be a change. See, that will be voted. The reserve fund will be voted before the budget, so if it gets voted down, then the budget can be amended to include that
Okay.
back to 12. If somebody remembers to do that. Or they can just give it to us and we'll have 3,000 extra. The next page is 3, that's also related to another discussion tonight is the co-file IT line right dab in the middle that says $6,000 increase on 6,200 to 12,200.
What is that one?
Right.
Yeah, so there was a
It's right in the Middle
5,000,
of page 3.
We never voted on that, did we?
that's on the agenda tonight for later. I'm showing you what it looks like
Okay.
if
Yeah.
you go for it. So there's a $5,000 increase for the managed services, which was all that virus protection and offsite monitoring and backup system, and then there's 1,000 more for the upgraded co-file program, which we already have a $5,000 line in there for land records.
Right.
So we're adding a little bit to upgrade that software and get the animal control thing in there. Plus go with a new vendor. That was the only changes on page 3. Page 4, we had the most changes in highway. That was level funding paving at the $225,000. And removing the proposed small road maintenance project increase, keeping that level funded at $9,000. We do have a stormwater reserve fund, which could do some small projects, like I think Susan's the one mentioned it, to use some of the reserve. If we get a special project that we might need done, we have that other revenue to use.
Right.
Now, where's that, where's that 12,000?
The 12,000 is 9,000 and proposed. It was 12, you reduced it back to 9. Or 20, what was it?
For
Small.
coal patching?
Uh,
There was a $12,000 coal patch in there that you added, Raj, right?
Yeah.
That got cut,
yeah, that
It's
was,
gone.
that was cut
yeah.
last time.
I thought the only thing we cut was a $50,000 ad.
12,000.
Yeah.
You took out
Cut
12 for
50,000.
this. We had increased, you see the small road maintenance stuff? That was 21.
Yeah.
Oh, it was?
It was 21.
Oh, okay.
And you took out 12 because you wanted to cut the budget a little more, but that was
Okay.
coal patching and small project increase.
Right.
So that's not available. That'll have to come out of the coal patch or the paving line if you have to, any election year paving, the skim coat type stuff. Whether we contracted or, so Mark's gonna have to worry about that 225 because it's back to what it was this year with that covering a lot of different paving, methods. So overall, it's 3.39, which is a pretty decent percentage from last year, but acceptable. No changes in public safety at the bottom of that page. No changes on page 5. Page 6, no changes. Page 7, there's one change. Hyde Park Village Improvement Association. Over the years, the Hyde Park Village Improvement Association, the county side judges, and the select board have all taken different undefined roles in three main pieces of the county property over Main Street. One is the memorial, which is on the left side of the courthouse. One is the town clock, which is in the steeple, the four-sided clock there. And the third one is a project that's been percolating a little bit, which is the pocket park, which would be in the front lawn, near the old payphone, across from the library. So the Village Improvement Association came in and said, hey, you know, since you, the town, are taking a little more interest in doing some of these things, we were collecting $200 for the county property, maintenance of the clock or maintenance of the memorial. And last time we took care of that, the select board did, because it was a couple $100 or something. And there was no clear, I think the VFW was involved with the memorial at one time, and the select board was designated as the backup to the improvement association if the association stopped maintaining the memorial. All sorts of things are up in the air right now. I'm trying to clear those up with a brand new agreement, which would have the town clock, the town select board, people's responsibility. Before it's been nobody's. So it'll say the town select board is in charge of that clock. The memorial, which is a couple $100 every 5 years or so, would be the town responsibility. And the pocket park, if that ever gets built, would be town responsibility, but at that time we'd finish, there's a little walkway problem, because you can't get to the back side of the memorial right now. It's grass or
Right.
rock, and you need to get back there with wheelchairs. So Gary Anderson came in and said, because of all that activity that you're doing, we won't ask for $200 this year. So that's a long story about why the 200 came off on that. But before, I guess the town was hands off a little bit more, it wasn't, and maybe Village Improvement was doing more. I'm not sure what the exact politics of it is, but
Right.
a new memorandum of understanding will be developed soon to clarify all that in writing, because the next folks shouldn't have to wonder about any of that stuff.
Okay,
Hey, Ron, what's the Vermont County Special Investigation Unit?
Sex crimes unit, yeah, children,
That doesn't go on our
no,
sheriff's department?
totally
budget?
separate. It's a multi-agency group that Roger sends a deputy or sergeant over with, but then there's Morristown involved with that. It's a county-wide effort run by the state's attorney's office, focusing on that domestic sex crime stuff.
Okay.
So it's totally separate. They get funding from a lot of different areas. Page 8 is new. This kind of resulted from, I called up Dave and I'm like, Dave, how do we deal with this? And I said, you know, we've got a large project that is happening on
Yep.
West Main Street and Johnson Street Extension, but it's not anywhere in the budget, don't you think? She says, don't we think we should show it somewhere in the town report?
right,
So I tried to pull from the capital plan that you have a draft form of from last couple meetings, but pulled the major capital projects onto one sheet so you can see what that is in one spot. And normally, we'd be running funding through reserves or grants, and you'll see some of that stuff in the town budget, or you'll see it in the town report, in the audit. But this brings it all together into one paper, so you can
right.
see it easier, I think, than trying to look at money, you know, a bunch of different spots. But the only item that hits the town general fund budget is the West Johnson Street Extension project, which, again, when we talk about that $225,000 next year, $50,000 is to repave Johnson Street Extension, but it's also used to match the grant.
Right, right.
So that's almost committed type money out of the 225, which leaves Mark with 170, and that's maybe a mile and a half of road somewhere. Paving. Which could be all of East Main Street if we deal with it. You know, like between, all the money would be going into the village between Johnson Street Extension and East Main Street. And that actually would be pretty good, because those are both almost main entrances into
Yeah.
the village. being almost brand-new roads, so that would be a nice improvement. On East Main Street, the only odd thing on that is the scoping study we had 2015 said that we should plan for a wide shoulder or a path to connect McMahon's to the school, so people can walk there and get there, and it's super hard to do that. They did do it a preliminary scoping, so out of any major project, you have your scoping, preliminary plans, and final construction. The scoping's already been done, and they think they have enough room in the right of way, but they didn't get into contours and historic sites and people's septic systems and things like that. They were just saying it fits from it's like a bird's eye view it fits, but once you start to put that stuff on the ground, it gets really,
Not gonna happen.
Rail trail ain't too far, they can go
Well,
out.
it wouldn't be a cost to us, that's a village, right? That'd be a village, being the sidewalk, correct?
roadside shoulders and paths would be town. The village is only built sidewalks as far as I know. I don't know what they're doing. That's a whole other discussion about what the select board's gonna take ownership of. Because if you were to put a connection, like Roland just said, from the rail trail to McMahon's or something, or somewhere out there, that's almost outside. It's in the village limits, but would it be a village project, a cooperative project, or a town project? Those are things we have never talked about. My guess is it'd be best cooperative, but it could be just a town project and finish it and take all the costs with it.
Right.
Of course, maintenance is the first question. Open winter time or not. If you don't do in winter, you'll be begged to do in winter. It's kind of how that works. You can try it without following it for the winter, but you either have to snowcat it or something, but I don't think it'd be unmaintained. Depends on how active it is to the sidewalks. I know Williston and Burlington had trouble building so much stuff, and then they got stuck with maintaining it all winter. So, but the voters approve it, whatever.
That's the trouble, I mean, people will want and vote on something, but they won't think ahead on the maintenance.
Well, or the full cost of a project like
Right.
science, if you're not doing that look for it and say, yeah, we got a good idea, and it starts to get legs, all of a sudden you got a bunch of followers with no end, or a big surprise at the end, because now you're hiring 2 people during the winter to do sidewalks.
Right.
So it's a big discussion anyway, so. But yeah, that's one of the things that was talked about. We can review that if we ever get into
Dave
these things.
Goodwin's up through there, what would you do across the bridge?
Jump. You couldn't, you have to build a bridge.
Yeah, you narrow your lanes or something and have a narrow bridge because you have a bike lane on one side.
That's already is a narrow bridge.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Narrower, yeah.
That little
Yeah, that would be
bridge down
another
there.
discussion.
Yeah,
So that's
Okay.
new. That I don't know if that format works for you, if you want to see different things in there, but that was an attempt to bring the capital projects into the town report
Yeah, at least it's transparent.
and show people
Yeah.
kind of what you're doing. Page 9 is just a summary. I don't know if you've seen this, if you've seen that report before, but that's our reserve fund cash accounts.
right.
It kind of goes with the other page. When you're trying to do your capital projects and you're saying you're gonna use
Right.
155 from the highway equipment, well, how much is in highway equipment? And you'll see we have 80, we need 155 for that loader sometime in FY '20, July, August, September.
Loader?
Yeah,
Loader.
July 1st, Roger's gonna have it here. So.
Right.
So we have 86,000 back in November.
It's all ordered.
It is.
A year. June 30th.
What kind?
Peeps.
Okay, wait a minute, let's get through this before we get.
Anyway, that's all.
Okay.
That's just a summary of showing you
Yeah.
what things were. That
No, I think the last 2 sheets are really helpful for people.
Yes, me too.
Yeah,
the other thing I handed out was the warning. There's not. This is still a draft. The Lamoille on the first page, the Lamoille North Modified Union Unified Union District is a 3-year term, not 2-year term. So there's 2 3-year terms on that. If you want to make that correction on your notes.
oh, it's 2, 3,
They're
okay.
2 3-year terms, not a 3 and a 2.
You hand that out, Ron?
Yep, just a little two-pager thing.
Oh,
Here.
Okay. Number 4 is what the library trustees met with you back on January 3rd concerning
Yep.
setting up a reserve fund for the library building and operations. After Article 4, just don't number it because sometimes those things change, but the next article is the $600 for Memorial Neighbors. They got a petition in with all the
the Dodgers
requirements.
ladies that came
Yeah.
last meeting.
Yep, I think Dave was the one that suggested they come to town meeting day, so they went and got their petitions and got on by our policy, if they submit a petition, they get added as an article. And they did that with 120 signatures, I think, on their petition, so that was good.
120?
It's up
Yeah,
there.
that crew's growing. There's a lot of interest.
No, what is that now?
Remember the ladies that come,
Oh, yeah.
they say somebody needs to go shopping, or they pick them up, or
Yeah.
somebody needed just to go visit, play cards with us.
Oh,
Yeah, just connecting we old folks up with each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, it's real-time Facebooking.
Yes, real, that's right.
Real
There
faces
we
for
go, that's right.
Facebooking elders.
That's exactly right.
Yes, if you need something, give a shout and somebody will come over.
Yeah.
So that's the $600, which will go on for the first time. Generally, after the first time, if it's voted in, we add it every
Right.
year at that
Right.
amount. And if they want to increase it, they have to do another round of
Right.
petition or asking the select board to waive the petition or whatever. But the next 2 articles about the constable are up in the air. The short story is that for years we appointed 2 people to constable who were already certified officers, either Lamoille County Sheriff or Town of Colchester, I don't know, but they lived in Hyde Park. And the select board would appoint Andy Plant and Chris Jones, and they really didn't do anything. They were never called into active. They could come, settle people down at town meeting day. They could serve a warrant or serve a notice that Dave is actually doing now, I think, for sheriff. And they would do things like that, not law enforcement, because the select board voted and directed them not to do law enforcement because you have the sheriff. So that's the history on it. When we were reviewing the insurances that the town pays, we looked at the workers' comp breakdown and found out that we had a $4,000 cost under police, which is one of their work types. You have highway, administration, police, ambulance, so on. And each work type gets a different factor for risk, and that results in your annual premium that we have to pay for workers' comp insurance. So I saw the 4,000, but I also knew that there was a history of the select board saying no law enforcement. They weren't actually doing anything for the town, and it didn't make any sense why that number was being charged. So we called up VLCT, who's the underwriter's contact over there, and they said, well, it's because you have certified volunteers that are certified by the state law enforcement, to do it. Because they can do it, then you get charged the regular rate as if you had 2 officers working for Hyde Park. So that's a high rate because it's police officers, but that's why it was so high. So I think we can fix that a couple different ways. And the 2 articles there, Dawn upstairs is looking for the history on that to see if those 2 articles were done by the town in the past. The state law says that the select board has to put up those positions for election. You have, in your warning, you have to elect the town constable. As far as when I've been here, it's always been appointed. The only way you can appoint is if the voters had that
Give
article.
us pres-
Change it.
Yeah, ever since I've known it's been appointed.
Right, but we can't find anything that says we ever had the authority
do
to
it.
do that.
Right.
So we thought maybe we'd ask for it now. And it may save us $4,000 a year.
So
Sort of seemed like a plan when we got into it.
I call it housekeeping.
Yeah, it sounds,
Housekeeping stuff.
yeah.
But it's $4,000 a year, housekeeping. The first question is appointment. The second question is actually in this new state law, which I think happened in the last 5 years or so, which is the voters can vote to prohibit town constables from performing law enforcement. And I think there's some stories about the constable that would be all a renegade speed enforcer in the various towns. the legislature heard that as an
Yeah.
issue, and they gave the voters the right to pull those from
Right.
constables, whether they're appointed or elected. We have both questions going on. In order to have appointed constables, we have to have the vote by the town first. In order to pull their law enforcement to reduce the workers' comp, we need to have the second vote to pull the law enforcement, so. I wish the legislature would just say may appoint a town constable, but now it's shall, you shall appoint
Right.
one town constable. And
One?
Yeah, we don't need to do two, it's a may for the second one. You can appoint two or more, may appoint two or more, but you shall appoint one town constable.
Okay.
So, I think I'm gonna talk, maybe we could talk to a legislator, just say, change that one word to shall, from shall to may, because that would give the town's ultimate ability to appoint or not appoint. So, if we can find the prior authorization votes at some town meeting or special meeting, we will take those two articles
Right.
off. If we can't find it, we have to clean up the record by asking again, or asking for the first time, depending on how you wanna look at it.
Right.
The next two are standard articles for the budget, and this last one is your quarterly payments, which have to be voted each year. If you don't vote that last article, everybody owes their taxes all at once.
Right.
So, maybe some little changes to this before your special meeting, which we need to talk about too. Special meeting proposed for signing the warning,
Oh,
once all the
okay.
petitions are done and whatnot, and the time is right.
Oh, okay.
Because Kim has to post it too around town for town meeting day.
Okay.
Tuesday, the January 29th in the morning, but I don't know what anybody's schedule looks like.
What time?
Sorry, I got that one.
I don't know, 8 or 9, whatever time you, 9:15,
Sorry,
9:10.
what day was it?
Tuesday, the 29th of January.
Let me check my schedule. Yeah, I make it.
Roger pulled out his notepad.
Oh, no.
No?
No, you didn't?
Don't carry one anymore.
Just write it down. Yeah.
I got out of a lot of stuff.
The 29th,
I'll be doing
okay.
another job next
What-
month.
Okay.
Don't remind me, Ron.
Yep, no, well, it's a regular special meeting, I'll send
What
it
time?
to you.
Tuesday, 29th.
Kind of up to you, Roland. You said you can get here by 9-ish, okay? Not 8 o'clock, 'cause you might be cleaning up your road still.
Right.
9 o'clock,
9 o'clock?
29th?
Yep.
And then you'll be done. The budget will get done that day, and the warning gets done that day.
Okay.
So continue to look at this thing for the next 2 weeks.
Let me just back up, Dave, I was just yanking your chain.
I know you were.
But we are gonna